40 years ago in Stockholm, Sweden, the world gathered for the first time to address the issue of humanity and the environment, and also to address the question of whether within the United Nations system we needed an entity that would address itself specifically to the issues of environment, sustainability, and our ability to manage not only the pollution footprint that had become the center of attention at the time, particularly in industrialized countries, but also to look at the question of how environment would in the future be managed in a growing world in terms of population, consumption, pollution, the need for resources. 4 decades later, we celebrate the 40th anniversary looking back upon a period in which an institution that began, even at that time, in controversy in the sense of whether the world really needed a special program to address environmental issues, but then member states, scientists, the public, civil society, and also the private sector increasingly turned to this fledgling institution, the United Nations Environment Programme, as a place where, first of all, science could find a home in terms of informing decision makers and the public. Based on that science, governments could respond collectively to some of the challenges, be it the trade in endangered species, be it the ozone layer and the hole that the world was facing in the early 70s, and that scientists had shown to us that if we would not remove ozone-depleting substances, would ultimately affect the health not only of the planet but of people even in those years. The combination of finance, technology and science and the ability to bring governments together in the Montreal Protocol and the Vienna Convention marked one of those milestones in the history of UNEP where over time we were able to bring all these threads together and make a difference. Today the world can look to the future with the issue of the ozone hole being one that is diminishing. The phasing out of 98% of ozone-depleting substances is testimony to one of the most successful treaties in the history of the United Nations. Over the years, the Convention on Migratory Species, later the Convention on Biological Diversity, but also the other array of conventions that emerged out of the Rio Summit in 1992, further reinforced the need and the attention that governments and also the public were paying to the role that the United Nations could play. Over the years, the United Nations Environment Programme has evolved from its headquarters here in Nairobi, Kenya, where it became at the time the first UN entity that was located in the Global South, to being a center for environmental action, to being a center for environmental cooperation, and also to be a center for the science policy interface. Our engagement with different stakeholders over these years has allowed us to play, in small ways but often very critical and strategic and sometimes catalytic ways, a role that has led, on the 40th anniversary of UNEP, to a decision at the Rio+20 summit to strengthen and upgrade UNEP.